go live on YouTube? 1, 2, 3. We are live on YouTube. Wow. Wonderful. Wow, what a lovely day today. Today is 14th of August, Independence Day for Pakistan, and tomorrow there will be Independence Day for India. Wow. Great. So let me just quickly share my screen over here. And wonderful. This is all done. Can you just confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so we are here today, Saudi Arabia, Microsoft Excel and Power Platform Meetup. Welcome everyone. And just let me know in the chat from where are you joining. So today we have an interested guest from Ghana, and I'm quickly going to introduce to him. And just make sure that this session is being getting live stream and on YouTube, and you can find recordings on the YouTube. So let me quickly tell you about myself. I am Faraz Shaikh, founder of Excel Exciting. I'm an MVP and an MCD and MIE and Microsoft Office Master, YouTuber, and I run my meetups, Saudi Arabia, Microsoft Excel and Power Platform. And I'm here today. By profession, I'm a supply chain guy, and I love Excel and I love logistics. So my mission is with my friends over here, to help the community and provide them easiest solution, invite them, and they have some interesting things to share. So they are here with me, and we share the knowledge, and equally we gain it from each other. So thank you for joining today, everybody, and let me know in the chat box that where you're from joining from. I can see some people are joining from Saudi Arabia as well today, and from Europe. So what do we have? We have My Data Summit coming up. 21 days left. A lot of excitement is going to come soon. And 21st, after 21 days on 5th of September, we are having a lot of people joining for the event, and we have some crazy lineup. So if you haven't brought the ticket, we have a special discount code Faraz-10. And people who are already in the meetup, and we have another special discount code for them. So make sure that you go and register if you haven't yet registered for for this My Data Summit event, because it's going to be massive jam-packed event with 35 speakers, and we have a Microsoft as a keynote speaker. We have Bill Jaren, Ken Pulse, Gasper, Liam, and all the masters in Excel and Power Platform over here in the list. So make sure that you don't miss this event, and make sure that you register it. And we even have masterclasses. So if you are interested in the masterclass, then definitely you can come and enroll for the masterclass. We welcome you for that. And these are some of our past meetup happened on Saudi Arabia Microsoft Excel Power Platform Meetup. So you can always feel free to go and check them out. So the upcoming meetup, which is there, we have as My Data Summit, and then we have Alexandria from Canada. She'll be joining us on explaining that how she's using Power Query and how it has been got transformed at her work routine pace. So that would be really interesting to see. And we have some sessions coming up in November. And we have a special deal. My friend, my brother, Alan Murray, Alan Bhai is going to launch a book, and it will be going to launch on 6th of September. It's a nice time when we have our My Data Summit is happening. So if you like to pre-order it, I'll be just dropping the link in the video description as well. And as well, I'll be sharing it in the chat. So make sure that you grab these Excel books, which have some great and awesome formulas. As usual, my friends, I would like to invite everybody who is here, like to share their knowledge and to the community. They are most welcome. It's about Microsoft Office, Power Platform, Azure, or even Google Sheets, or anything you feel like you should share it to the community. Please, I welcome you. You can write down me on my email address, excelexciting@outlook.com, and I'll be very happy to get in touch with you and we can arrange the stuff. So what I can see from the chat, we have people joining from Portugal, UK, wow, Canada, okay, Ghana, awesome, from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, welcome, wow. And just to make sure that quick housekeeping, just mute your mic, and most of if you have any questions, you can just raise up your hand. We have a special time for Q&A. We can ask Bernard, at the end of the session, or I would leave it to Bernard how he would like to take the questions during the session. Wonderful, Abbas. Yes, you're from Dammam. You're very close to me then. Great. So today, the person on the hot seat is Bernard. Bernard is, I know Bernard through MVP when I became an MVP, and I've been knowing Bernard quite a long time through some groups of WhatsApp where we have Excel, and Bernard has been always sharing some amazing knowledge on Excel. And today I got an opportunity to invite him and talk about the queue functions and the flexibility, how we can make it pivot table simple or queue function flexibility. What is the best one for us? We can decide that after seeing the session, So this is really going to be awesome. I'm not going to take much more time on that. I will just leave the floor now for Bernard. And Bernard, the floor is yours. And please let us know about yourself. People would really like to know about you, the handsome guy from Ghana.
Thank you, Faraz. I'm happy to be here. This is a pleasure to join my brothers and sisters all over the world to share the knowledge. My name is Bernard Obeng Boateng. I'm from Sunnyside, Ghana, Africa, West Africa. I'm sure most of you have passed through. I'm lead trainer at Finest Skills Hub. So let me just share my screen and then walk through this together.
Perfect.
Good. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see.
Good. So I'm lead trainer at Finest Skills Hub. It is located in Accra. It's a training hub. So we train in data analytics, financial modeling. We do Python. We do app sheets, low code, no code, app development as well. So it's a very vibrant community here in Ghana. I support businesses with financial dashboards. And my passion is to share the knowledge to make it easier for people to work smart and save time. So hopefully after this evening, you should have more options when it comes to analyzing data and creating dashboards in Excel. So that's about me. I can see a lot of familiar faces have joined. Thank you for taking time to join us this evening. Okay, so the agenda this evening is pretty simple. I'm not here to pass a verdict, but I'm here to give you options when it comes to working with Excel. Okay, there are some things that we don't know, but if we know, we'll probably use them very well. So the decision is, when you are creating dashboards, are you going to use pivot tables, which has been with us for a very long time, or you're going to use cube functions? Okay, I like using cube functions a lot. Okay, so over here in Finest Skills Hub, we give ourselves the challenge to solve the cube functions. Now, if you know how cubes work, you realize that when you calculate through the data model, a lot of the things that you get from pivot tables, you can also get using a cube function. So I'm going to go through examples of these, and then hopefully after today's session, you should see how flexible it is, and then you can combine it with pivot tables to make the best out of your dashboard. Okay, so I've made a workbook available. You can practice along. This is the start workbook, so you can always refer to the video, the playback, and then practice along, take some key things to make it easier for you. Okay, so you've probably seen this if you have been following me. I like to give you an overview of what we are going to cover. The typical way we analyze data in Excel. Okay, so here I have two tables. This one is actual, one is budget. I like using this data set because I think everybody earns money, everybody spends money. So it's easier for people to understand and relate. Okay, so we'll take your budget, a very simple budget, and then your transactions table, how you spend. Okay, and we are going to use Power Query. So we'll go through Power Query to do some house cleaning, transform the data, shape it, okay, to make it easier for us to analyze. Okay. And when we are done, we'll now make transition to Power Pivot. So in Power Pivot, we'll create a data model. So in the data model are two tables, which are our fact tables, recording our activities. We'll create dimensions around it. So dimensions help us analyze the data. So we'll create dimensions on dates, see which month you are spending on, okay? We'll create dimensions on categories, type, class, and all that to make it easier for us to create a dashboard. Okay, now, if you have been following this schema, you realize I've taken away pivot tables. I have put in cube functions. The idea is that I want to show you that you can create a whole dashboard without using pivot tables. So from here, from the data model, we'll go straight to our cube functions, and then we'll add some charts, some slicers and timelines, and develop this interactive dashboard, okay, that is going to update when you add new data or the data shrinks. Okay, so that is the journey for this evening, and I'll be taking your questions as and when I build my dashboard. Okay, so let me share the final dashboard with you. So this is the dashboard. Very simple dashboard. So here you can use this timeline, okay, to see by quarter, by month, okay, half year. So it responds to tell you your inflows, your outflows, and your net position. Okay, and you can compare your budgets and your
Bernard?
actual. Yes.
Bernard, your voice is a little slow.
Is it clear
Really,
now?
yeah, now it's better.
Fantastic. Okay, apologies. So I was walking you through the dashboard. So you have this dashboard. It has some timelines here. So this timeline allows you to check where you are spending, okay, which month is taking away your money and all that. Then on the left side, you are able to compare your budget and your actual. Now, you'll notice that I have my income lines on top, okay, and I have my expense lines below. And this is sorted, it's ranked, okay? So you have from the top all the way down, income and expense. With this, I can just filter or slice, show only expense, and I can also show only my income. I can also show both, okay, using the same slicer, right? Then I'm also able to select by class. Okay, so example, if I want to see my budget and actual by class, this is like a higher grouping, right? So I can see how it is going. And I also have this income statement visualized, okay, using the waterfall. So how my income came in and how I spent for each period of the year. So that is what we are going to do this evening. I'm going to take it slowly because I understand there are different proficiency levels here. So if I speak above you, pardon me, if I speak below you, so that we all get something to take away. Okay, so we are going to start off. This is how your start worksheet looks like. Okay, if I have time, I'll go through the dashboard. But what is important here is that we learn how to take the data sets, which is in tables at the moment. Okay, so I have this data set. It's already in a table. How do you know? Because when you step in the table, you have the table design here. This has been named actual. Okay, so note that normally we get data in a range. Now I'll go to budget, and then you see that I also have my budget table here. It makes it easier when you are using calculations in Power Query using the M code and also DAX, okay, in your data model. So we've named our tables. As I said, the first thing we're going to do is to take these two tables into Power Query to transform it. Now, when it comes to creating our budgets, we prefer this 12-month layout. Okay? It makes it easier to enter the data. But in terms of analysis, it's not going to be useful. So one of the transformations we are going to do is to shape the budgets layout so that it looks similar to our transactions table here. So that is the first step we are going to go through. So off to Power Query. This is Power Query. I have my data tab here, and in the leftmost part, I have get and transform data. Okay, so this is a table already. I will use the table icon to load this. So it goes through Power Query, and it opens the Power Query window. So normally when you have your data in Power Query, it is important you make sure the data types are correct. Okay, so we'll take a walk through. This has been formatted as date and time. So I'm going to format this as date. Okay, replaces the current step over here. Now in my analysis, I'm not going to use transactions. That's the granular description. So I'm going to remove this. Okay, so basically what I need is my date, my category, and then my amount. Okay, so I have this here. Now, without stepping out of the Power Query, I'm going to take advantage of the M code. Okay, the first step that it executed when it brought in the actual to bring in my budget. So you observe that what I need to do is just change the name of the table from actual to budget. So I'll step in here, Control A, Control C, okay, to copy. Go to new source, other sources, and then I'll use blank query here. Okay, so I'm starting a new query. I'll paste this here and then edit from actual to budget. Code is case sensitive, so you need to make sure you're using the right case. Okay, so this brings my budget table. Now, because I'm going to do a lot of transformations on this raw data, I'd like to keep this as reference. Okay, so I'll keep this so that I can take my budget table from it. I can also take my categories dimension table from it. Okay, so that I don't have to go back and forth. So this comes in as query. I'm going to name this as reference. So I'll name this as reference. Now, if you're familiar with personal finance or how budgeting works, okay, there's the inflow, there's the outflow part, but sometimes you create this control account for transferring between accounts. Okay, so usually at the end of the period is 0. So for this analysis, I'm going to come to the type which has income, expense, and transfer, and take off my transfer. Okay, so this is the raw budget table I'm going to use. Now, from here, I can reference my budget copy. So I'm going to reference this, and this is what I'm going to call budget. Okay, so this reference will be here. Anytime I need it, I'll come back for it. So this is my budget, and as I said, I have my category, I have my class, and then I have my type. But we'll prefer these 12 months, okay, from January to December, to come in as columns. So typically in data analytics, we prefer data sets to be longer. Okay, so each column should just be doing one job for us, containing one attribute or a value. So we can collapse these 12 into dates, okay, and amount. And to do that, I'm going to highlight these first three, category, class, and type. Okay, I'll right click, and I'm going to unpivot other columns. Okay. So I'll bring in those two columns. Now, this has been treated as an attribute, which is fine. It's our date attribute. And then I have a value column also here. Now, I need to change this to a proper date. So when I change this to a proper date, you realize that it takes the first point of the month. So this is 1st January. Okay. Now, I'm going to be creating a calendar table. So what I need is I need the start and end of the year. Okay. So if I use this, it means my latest date is going to be the 1st of December, but I need 31st of December to be my latest date at every point in time. So I'm going to add an end of month column. Okay, so if I come to the add column area, okay, I'm going to come to the date section and then extract an end of month column here. Okay, so this will make sure that I have my EO month sort of anytime I need a dynamic calendar. Okay, so to make it easier to use in our M code, I'm going to rename this, okay, as S dates, as in start dates. Okay, and then I'm going to name this as E dates. Okay, so that I'll use this later to create my calendar table. You appreciate why I'm doing this. Now, when it comes to budgeting, I mean, the example we are using, the values were all absolute numbers. But if you take a look at our actual, you realize that we've adopted a principle where we negate expenses and then positive numbers are positive. So we need to make it consistent in the budget area too. So here, I'm going to add a column, okay, that would give me or convert these absolute numbers. That is, if the expense, okay, is there, it should just multiply it by -1. Otherwise, it should give me the original value. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to come to add column, and then I'm going to create a custom column. Okay, so I create a custom column, and I'm going to name this amount. So this is the final column I'm going to be using. Now, I'm going to generate an M code. So if type is equal to expense, okay, then take value and multiply by -1, else give me value. Okay, so this is going to convert the expenses into negative, and then the positives will remain for income. So I click OK. All right. So this is what I'm going to use, and I have to format this properly. So I'm going to format this as a whole number. Okay. Now I can get rid of this. Okay. So let me just take a final walkthrough to be sure that everything I have here is correct. So I have my category here. I have my class. I have my type. I have my start dates. I have my end dates, and then I have my values all formatted. Okay. Now, these are our facts tables. So the actual and budget record our budget numbers and then our transactions, but we need to have tables that will help us analyze. Okay, so we bring in 2-dimension tables. Okay, one table that would help us analyze by category, class, and type. So in category, I have all the granular charity, clothing, consultancy, food, fuel, all the things that you spend on, right? And then it's grouped at a higher level, maybe for your purpose. You want to see these expenses and income by family, fixed expenses, your income lines, optional, recurring. Okay, so this is another level of grouping. And then we have this third column that shows us whether it's an income or an expense. It is these 3 columns that I need in a special dimension table to help me with my slices. Okay, so to do that, I'll come back to reference again. Okay, and then I will reference from here. Okay, because I have these 3 columns present. I'm going to call this categories. So I'm naming this categories. Okay, and because I'm focused on these 3 columns, I'll just highlight these 3 and then remove other columns. Okay. Now, if you know a bit about dimension tables in Power BI and Excel, the rows, okay, or the items should be unique. So I don't have to get these repeating. So I'll just come here and then remove duplicates. Okay, so I have a unique list for my categories dimension. Okay, so beyond just analyzing your finances by category, class, and type, it's also important that you are able to analyze by date. Okay, now in Excel and Power BI, when it comes to creating a calendar table, it makes it easier for us to create a series of dates that do not have gaps. Okay, So we are going to use an original or custom M code to create a calendar table from scratch. So again, I'll come to home, come to new source, other sources, and then I'll hit a blank query. Okay, so the formula or M code is going to be number from. So number from is going to go into a particular column, okay, and extract the minimum number or the minimum date in that column. So I'm going to use list.min. Okay. Now, in the budget table, you realize that we created start and an end. Okay. So to make it make it cover all our time or our date, okay, I'm going to call the budget table. Okay. And then bring in S dates, which is the start date. So here, I'll get my minimum date. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and I'll close this as well. So this is going to bring the minimum date. I'm going to copy this. Okay, so Control C, then come to the end here, and then put in 2. So I'm creating a range or a list, and I'll paste this here. So number.from list.min. This time I'm looking for the highest. So instead of min, okay, I'm doing max. Okay, and then from the budgets, I'm looking for e-dates, and this is why I kept the name short to make it easier for us. Okay, so bring me a list of continuous dates, starting from the least date all the way to the end, and this is going to be a list. So what I need to do is put it in curly brackets, okay, and then I'll press enter. So it generates a series of dates starting from the least date continuously without any gaps all the way to the end. And of course, it updates. So if your budget end changes, it will also update. So with this, I can go to table to convert this list into a table. Nothing to do here. I'll click OK. And this is going to be my first column in my date table. So I'll name this date. Okay. And I'll change the data type to a proper date. So just to confirm, my dates start from 1st all the way to 31st December, which is fine. Now from here, you can draw out any attributes that you want to use in your analysis. So if you want, let's say month, you can do that using the add column. So I'll select this first column, okay, come to the date icon, month, and then I'm going to use the month here, which gives me the month values, okay. Normally, you do this to make it easier to sort. In the event, it sorts it alphabetically. So I'm going to extract the real month name. So I'll come to the date, come to month, and then I'll use name of month here. So from these dates, it's giving me the month names that relate to this. For what I'm going to create, I'll prefer an abbreviated or truncated month name. So I'll move to transform, okay? And then selecting this, I will extract my first 3 characters. So I will extract my first 3 characters here. Okay. So if you want other quarters and all those things, you can do them here. And then I'm going to name this calendar. We are doing all this to make it easier for us in the data model. So what have we achieved here? We've created a calendar dimension table. We've created a dimensions table for categories. We have our budgets. We have our actual here. Just a final walkthrough to be sure everything is fine. Very important you do this. So all the data types are fine. Categories. Okay, calendar. Okay. So we are done with Power Query and we are moving on to Power Pivot. So at this point, I'll go to home and then close and load to. So this is my option, close and load to. I'm going to use a second one to give me some options to load as a connection. So when this comes here, I'll save this as a connection and then add all the queries as a data model into the data model, and then I'll click OK. So it goes through all that we've done and loads your actual, your budget, your categories, and your calendar. So obviously the reference query there was just a helper query. So in terms of what we are going to do, we need to change that load so that it doesn't go with us to the data model. All we need is our 2 calendar, 2 fact tables and our 2 dimension tables. So I'll click on the reference query and then change this load type, okay, and then take it off the data model. So this is fine. Okay, so far we finished our Power Query work. Now let's go to Power Pivot. So we expect all the 4 tables to be in our Power Pivot. So I have this Power Pivot manage. If you don't have Power Pivot, you can go to data, okay, and then enable it from here. Okay, so I have it already installed. So I'll click on manage and it opens the Power Pivot window. Now over here, you see all your queries here. So I have my actual, I have my budget, okay, and then I have my categories, and then I have my calendar. This is the data view, okay. So we are coming to the diagram view. This will help us visualize all our queries in tables, okay. So here, as I said, your activity is happening in actual and budget, okay. This is what goes on every day or every month. But what you are describing it by are the dimensions. So usually we put the actual, okay, below or at the center, as the fact tables below or at the center. So I'll put these 2 here. Then I'll place my categories on top to help me describe my numbers. Okay, so here, to make the tables talk, I need to create a relationship among the tables. So we look out for the common columns. So when I take the dates in actual, okay, I can link it to the dates in calendar. Okay, so I'll do same for budgets. So I'm using the start date in budgets, and then I'll link it to the dates over here. Then I come to category. So category is also going to link up with the category that I have a unique list. Okay, and then I have my category for budget too, which I'm going to link up here. So this way, I have all my tables in one place. I can call all my calculations from the data model to make it easier. Now, after you've done this, you can exit the data model or Power Pivot, and then let's concentrate on our measures. Now, you observe that when it comes to creating dashboards, you have your inflows and your outflows from your actual and budget side. These numbers that you are seeing in this dashboard are what we are going to create as measures. We can use them across our dashboard. So to create our measures, we are going to use a very organized method to store all our measures. Now, this is one trick that you can use. So you can copy an empty cell, okay? And then you go to your Power Pivot environment. Okay, so we are back here, and you hit the paste icon here. So we are creating an empty table. So normally, I call this my measures, and then I'll click OK. So this is the table I'm going to store all my measures to make it organized. Now, to make it click only DAX measures, I'm going to right click this, the header, then hide this from client tools. Okay. So when you create our measures, everything will be stored here. Okay, so let's now exit and then start creating our first measure. So the first measure is going to come from our Power Pivot. We go to our measures, and I'm going to create this new measure here. Now, when it comes to the table names, I can switch to my measures. And this is the only time I'm doing this. Once I do this and my first measure goes in, anytime I come here, I have my measures as a default table. Okay, so this is measure 1. We name this actual. Here, I'm using DAX, a very simple DAX formula. So it's going to sum from the actual table all amounts. Okay, and I'm going to format this as a number, use 1,000 separator, then reduce this to 0. Okay, and I can check my formula to be sure everything is correct, and then I'll click OK. Okay. Good. So let's do our second. So in our second, we will create a new measure. My measures is now my default table. Okay, so I'll come here and then do budget. Okay, and then sum from the budget. Okay, my amounts, I'll close this. Do same as I did with the actual. Use this to 0. Check my formula to be sure everything is okay. Okay, and then I'll click OK. These are the 2 key measures that we are going to use in our analysis. Now, let's switch to our calculations. So when it comes to calculations, we've created our two measures, right? You can use a pivot table at this point. Okay, so in fact, when you come to the insert area, when you try inserting a pivot table, you find the option, the data model from here. Okay, so let me try that, and then later we can make the comparison. So I need to create an output for my actual and my budget. So I'll come here from the data model. Okay, I'm putting it in this existing worksheet, and then I'll click OK. So when my pivot table fields come up, you realize that I have my measures here, okay, all in one place, and then I have my tables down here. That is what I did, and that's what it resulted in. So from this, I can check my actual, and then I can check my budget as well. Okay, so this is sort of like the net after the negative and positive net out. This is my actual and budget. So all well and good. I can describe this by any of these rows, okay? But the challenge is for the dashboard we are going to create, we need these numbers in flexible cells. Okay? As you saw, when I hit income, I'm able to filter and all those things. They need to live in cells so I can easily manipulate them as I please. Okay, so this is where I introduce you to the first few function. There are about 7. So we use 4 this session. So I'm going to show you how you can draw the same thing here. This is actual and budget. Now, equal to cube, and then you see all the cube functions here. But I'm going to use the cube value here. So for all the cube functions, you need to call the data model. So you bring a double quote, and then it pops up the data model, okay, and then you close the double quote. Okay. Now from here, you can call any member. So usually you have your measures there, then you have other dimensions to be called. Okay, so if you use some ifs, you can take off your value, and then you can throw in criteria from around your cube. Okay, so if this is my measure area, and describe the value I'm drawing, let's say by a particular category, by a particular date, and all those things. It's that method we are using. So I have my data model, I'll bring a double quote, and then I have my measures here. So I'll tap my measures and then bring a dot. Then the two measures that I calculated are here for me to select. So measures.actual, I'll close my double quote, and then I have this. Okay, so I get the same thing that the pivot table gave me. Let's do same for budget. So cube value, okay, and then I'll call my measures again, and this time around, I'm looking for budget. Now, the thing is that if we wanted a particular filtered value, I could throw in other member expressions, okay, to filter it. For this purpose, these two. Okay, so that's one advantage. You can have your pivot tables, draw your values from your data model, and then you can also use cube formulas to also draw. Now, another advantage that cube formulas give you is you are able to harvest all the items you have selected in your slicer and timeline. So let me show you this. So you can see here that if I take this timeline, okay, I'm selecting, okay, and it's getting me the data. Beyond getting me the data, I'm also even able to see which month I have selected. So I select only March, you see that it's 1st March, 31st March. So it's this advantage that the cube formulas give you. If I select a particular expense as well, I can see what I have selected and then use it in formulas. Okay, so let me show you how you can do this. So I'll go back to our worksheet. Because we have the data model, it's easy to insert your slicer and your timeline from the data model. So I'll come to insert, okay, and then I have my slicer and my timeline here. So I'll click on my slicer, and I'm able to connect to the data model. So in the data model, I have a list of all my tables. Okay, so I have my actual, okay, I have my budget, I have my calendar. I'm going to use that for my timeline later. Then I have my categories, which is my dimension table. So over here, I'm interested in class and I'm interested in type as a slicer. Okay, and I'll click OK. So I have these two. So I have these two, and I'm going to also add a timeline. So I'll go to insert, then add a timeline, same method. I'll go to data model, and then over here, I'll click open. And I expect to see only columns that contain dates. Okay, so I'll come and then check calendar, which is my primary source for all my date calculations. And I'll click OK. So I have these two slicers, one timeline. Okay. Now let's see how we can call the values that we have selected. So first, I'm going to put in the class. Now, to call what you have selected, you have to use another function called cube rank member. So cube rank member takes a value from an ordered set. Okay, so see the slicer, the timeline, as containing an ordered list of items. So I can use the cube rank member, okay, returns the n or rank member in the set. I'll call my data model over here, okay, and then my set is the name of the slicer or the timeline. So here, I do SL, all the slicers and their names come. So I can call slicer class, now which position am I interested in? The first one that has been selected. So usually when you put in 1, it gives you the first one that has been selected. Okay, so I'll close my brackets, and then I have this. Currently I've selected all. Okay, so if I come and I choose family, you see that I can harvest my family here. Okay. I would do same for type. Okay, so it's the same formula. So I'm going to copy down Control D. And then from this workbook data model, I have my slicer. This time around, I'm taking this from type. Okay, so let's test this. Expense working. Okay, now let's see what date we have selected. So I'll come to date, and then I actually repeat the same formula. The only difference is I'm going to change the slicer type to a timeline. Okay, so my timeline date is here, and then I have this. So it comes in as text, okay, line to the left. So I can wrap this around date value. Okay, so wrap this around date value, Control Shift hash to format this as a proper date. Okay, so when I do this, I now have the first point that I have selected. I'm going to show you a little trick to see the interval, okay, what you have selected. So here we can create a measure, okay, a measure that gives us the minimum point of our calendar table and then the maximum point of our calendar table. So let's go back and then create a measure. So power pivot, measures, new measure, okay, and then I'm going to call this selected date. Okay, so what I need is I'm going to use min. Okay, so min goes into my calendar. Okay, so my calendar date. Okay, so this will bring the least item in my calendar date. Okay, and I'm going to format this. So I'm going to format this, okay, using this format dd.mmm YYY. Okay. So this at every point in time is going to give me the first point. Then I'm going to join this, okay, to, and then repeat this. Okay, so instead of min, I'm going to choose max. Okay, so let me check. Okay, so I have format here. Okay, so I'll format this. So this is my format. Oh, okay. So I left this one out. Okay, so dd not MM. Okay, so this is that. Okay, let me see if
I think the max bracket is not closed. We are missing out with the parentheses.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, good. Okay, so I have this, and then I'll click OK. Okay, so this is going to give me that option to call my interval. Okay, so when I come here, I'm going to use the cube value. Okay, so I'll use the cube value, and then okay, I'll go to my measures, and then I have my selected date over here. Okay. Now, to make it respond to my timeline, I'm going to put in a timeline. And I'll close this. Okay, so this is what I wanted to achieve. So when you take my timeline, you see that when I now come in here, I now have the period I've selected as an interval. Okay. So this is one advantage that you can get using cube functions. I already showed you that you can use that to, pull the values from your slices and all that. Okay, so I'd like to pause here and see if there are any questions, and then I'll continue with the rest. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Faraz, are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to check the YouTube chat as well. There's a lot of people from Ghana have joined over there. So if you don't mind saying them hi. And I'm checking the question, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, they like the trick. It's a nice trick. They mentioned to create a measure table in PowerPoint. And even I just like that formatting content, how you have done it. It's really interesting, Bernard.
Fantastic. Okay, so at least we now have.
We can continue, and if any questions is there, I'll just monitor it and I'll just let you know.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go on to another set of functions called CubeSet. Okay, so with CubeSets, what we have is it gives us a list of items, okay, an ordered list or ranking of items. So as I said, you see that in this dashboard, I have my categories, okay, sorted, my income above, and then my expense. This is particularly useful when you are drawing your financial statements and you want the items to be present in an ordered way. Okay, so this is one way to do that. Another way I've used this is to create this waterfall chart. Okay, so these are sets. I'm going to show you how we create sets as well. So I'll come here and we are going to call items in category. Okay, so items in category are all the things that we budget or spend on. Okay, so I'm going to use the cube set. Okay, so again, I'll call my data model. Okay, and then my set expression is going to be from categories. Okay, it's going to be from the column called category. Okay, and then I'll call all the children. So when I use all children, means I'm looking for everything in there. Okay. Now you have the option to bring in captions. So usually when you do this, it returns an empty cell. Okay, so you can put in items in category. That's what is going to show in the cell. Okay. And then you can sort. So you realize that my incomes are top and then my expenses are down. Okay. It is so because my positive numbers are up there and then my negative numbers are below. So I want to sort this descending, right? And then when I come here, I can sort by a particular measure. So I have measures and then I have my budget. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that in the order that I budgeted, okay, use that to sort, okay, and then give me the income on top and then the expenses below. So usually when you hit this, the caption that you gave comes if you provided, if not, it comes as a blank cell. But to be sure, you can count it. To be sure you have the number of items in there. So we'll count categories. And here we are going to use another cube function. Okay, so we have cube set count. So cube set count is going to give me 22. Okay, so what this means is that if I want all the items in my category, okay, I can pull them using an earlier function that we use, cube rank member, to make it easier for us to pull all the numbers. I'm going to show you this shortly. But while we are here, let us also do same for items in class. So items in class, this is the higher grouping that we did earlier. I'm going to copy these two, okay, and then just change some few things. So I'll come here, and then instead of category, I'm going to use class. Okay, that is a higher grouping, children, and then, so we realize that I have only 5 in there. Okay, so I'll count my class as well. And I have these two. Now, what do we have here? It's a cell that contains a lot of items. Okay, so we are going to find out how they have been stored and how they have been run. So example, if I come and I want to pull all those lists that I've ordered, I'm going to use cube rank member. Okay, so cube rank member, that's what we used earlier for our sizes and timeline. Okay, so I'll take this workbook data model. Okay, and then I'll come and then select my set, which is this one. Sometimes I prefer that you name it, make it easier for you to use. Okay, so let me just name this quickly. So Control Shift F3. And I'm going to use the names on the left to name this. Okay, so what it means is that I now have items in category as this one. Okay, and then my count is also going to be this one. So let me also name these ones as well, and then I'll use them later. So Control Shift F3, use it from the left side, and then I click OK. Okay, so now back to my cube rank member. As I said, the cube rank member now pulls the list. Okay, so my set expression is going to be the items in category. Okay, now it comes in an order. So from 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. We prefer to use sequence. Okay, so sequence on this one is going to give us all those numbers that we need. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Then I have my salary, consultancy, and investments on top. Okay, so the trick is that because these are profiled as positive numbers, I have these 3 coming on top, then followed by my expenses going down in that order. Okay, so it's one neat way to sort, especially if you have a measure you want to sort by. Now, let's look at the values that we have against each. Okay, so what we are trying to achieve here is that if I take off my filters, okay, so let me just take off my filters. I have my salary. Zooming in here so that I have a clearer view. Okay, so I have my 3 income lines on top. Okay, and then for each, I have the values that they represent on the side. Okay, then my expenses come. This way, I'm able to compare side by side. Okay, so is this kind of layout I'm trying to build here? I'm using the cube rank member to achieve this. Okay, so if you've been following, you realize that you can easily pull the numbers using cube value. Okay, so I can have my actual here, I have my category here, just by the layout, then I have my budget here. Right, okay, so to call my actual, I'll use my cube value, call my data model, okay, and then I'm going to call the measures, which is actual, and I'll select this. This is now reading as a member, okay, so because it came in the cube rank solution, you can now reference this as a member directly. So I'll close off this. then I have this one. Now, the thing is, when you create some of these values, you can include slices and timelines. Okay, so beyond just the expressions that you put in there, you can also put in timelines. So I can put in the timeline here. So that when I select a particular time, it will just filter this. Now, I'm going to use the same method to bring my budget side. So if it helps, I just copy this, same Q value, okay, and I'll paste this here. And I'll change this from actual to budget. Okay, and then I think it's still referencing this. So at least based on what I've filtered, I know I have 15,000 budgeted for salary, and then actual is 12,000. Okay, so I can roll this down. Okay, and then I roll this down as well. Okay, so I hope you are getting the whole flexibility now. So you can now spell easily if it's ranked. You can also call the items from your slices and timelines. Now, one trick I'm going to show you is the way we are able to use our timeline. Okay, our slides, I must say, income and expense, we filter based on income and based on expense. Okay, so if I click on only income, you see it responds. I click on only expense, it also responds. So let's learn how we did this. So we are going to use filter. Okay, but before we use the filter, we need to know whether the line we are standing on is an income or an expense. Okay, so to be able to achieve this, let me bring the type here, and then I'll call whether it's an income or expense by the side. I'm going to use XLOOKUP to do this. You can also use index and match to do that. So I'll use XLOOKUP. Okay, so my lookup value is salary. I'll go to the budget table and then look for this in category. Then I hope to return the type. So I'm just looking for whether it's an income or an expense. So I have this, and I can just roll this down, and I have my income and expense. So based on this, I'm now able to apply a filter to give me only income or only expense. So I'm using this data set to stage another layout here, which I'm going to use, and I'm going to feed that into my dashboard. Okay, so if you're familiar with how the filter function works, it will be easier to use a filter. But you know, when we were calculating, we were able to harvest whether we've selected type expense or type income when we are here. Okay, so when I come here, let me just bring this slider here. Okay, so if I click on income, I have this here. I click on expense, I have this here as well. Okay, so again, it would be helpful if I can name these cells so that I don't have to come all the way up to reference this. Control-Shift F3. Okay, so I'm naming this from the left column, and I have this. So here, if I now choose type, it tells me whether I've selected expense or I've selected income. This is what I'm going to use in my filter. Okay, so I'll come here and then run my filter on the whole of this. It's ordered, so I can call it using the whole area. Okay, so I'm filtering this to include based on this, okay, what I have selected in type. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, when I click on expense, it gives me expense. When I click on income, it gives me income. But what if I have not selected anything? Okay, so I need to put in an if formula. Okay, so if type is equal to all, okay, then give me the whole of this. The original data sets. Otherwise, you give me that filtered version that I'm looking for. I'll close this. And then I have that. So currently, let me bring the slicer here. Press this down here. Currently, I've selected expense. select income, I have income. Okay, when I clear all, I have it. And the advantage I'm getting here is that it is still ordered, income is still on top, and my expenses are still down, right? Okay, so cube rank member makes it easier, especially for finance and accounting, when you are reporting and you want a particular set of accounts to always remain in a particular position. This is very useful. Okay, so if we're creating this dashboard, we've calculated most of the calculations that we did here. So this is what I just did. Okay, so let's go in and then calculate for our total inflows, our total outflows, and then our net position. And when we are done, we'll create the background for our waterfall chart. Then we'll probably link them in, and then you appreciate how the whole dashboard works. Okay, so let's calculate our total inflows. Yes, and from here, we'll calculate our total outflows, and then we'll calculate our net. I don't know if you can guess what function we are going to use. So the cube value always brings a value based on a set of expressions. Okay, so we'll use cube value here. Okay, I'll call my measures. This time around, I'm looking for actual. Okay, and then I'll call my categories. So my categories contain type. Okay, and then the type is income and expense. So all the type that is classified as income, okay, I need that here. Okay, so let's test and be sure this is working. So it brings us 100,000, which is everything that went through our actual last income. So you appreciate that this is the measure, okay, the actual, and then I'm just filtering this on the type called income. And that is the advantage that I have here. Now, as I said, you can also introduce timelines and slices in here. So after this, I can, let's say, introduce the timeline date so that if I click on a particular timeline, this will be filtered, right? Okay, so let me copy this. And I'm going to edit for my outflows. So here, I have my data model here. It's still my actual, but instead of income, okay, I'm going to use expense. And my timeline is also there. So this is actually going to sum everything that came in. And of course, the expenses are negative. Okay, so I'm going to run an ABS function around this. So I'll run an ABS function around this. I'll close this. So this is one neat way to get your inflows and your outflows. And of course, from this point, you can easily do your subtraction and you get your net. Okay. So as long as they are connected to the timelines, it means when you slice, okay, or you select any time period, this is going to respond. Okay. Now let's call our classes. Okay, so we just achieved this one. We just calculated this outflow, inflow, and then our net position. Okay. Now we want to create this. Just a minute. Okay, so we want to create this waterfall. And here, the idea is that we have our income coming in, and then we have our expenses also going down to give us our net position, right? Now, if you have used pivot tables for a while, you realize that when you insert waterfall charts on pivot tables, it's normally not possible. You have to create a mirror, okay? But with cube functions, you can easily just pull all the classes, of course, in an ordered way, okay? So you realize that this income is always going to come first, and it's always going to be followed by expenses. Then I can get my net position from here as well. Okay, so let's learn how we create this. So I'll go to my calculations. Okay, and here I'm going to use the same cube rank member. Okay, so my set expression is going to be items in class. We did that earlier, right? So the items in class was the set that we created earlier. Okay, and then the rank is going to be sequence. Okay, count class. Then I'll close this. Okay, don't need a caption. So when I do this, you realize that it has given me my income, okay, my expenses in that order. Now, there's a neat way to bring a net position every time that you have this list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run an index around this. So this is my original list. Okay, and then I'll bring sequence, all the same class, and then add +1. Okay, and then I'll close this. So when I do that, because there's no set point in this, I get the ref. Okay, then I can take advantage of this spell, and then instead of a ref, I'm going to show a net position. So I can run an if error around this, and then say when this ends, give me net as the end. Okay, so at this point in time, I have all my classes, and it always ends with a net position, right? Okay, so as we did earlier, we can now call our actuals. Okay, so I'll do my cube value, and then here I'll bring in my measure, which is actual. Okay, and then I will select my member here. Okay, so with this, I can copy it down. Okay, then I can now sum this to give me my net position every time. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use to create my waterfall chart. And you know, it's already laid out. I have my positive numbers on top, and then I have my expenses here, and I have my net position. Okay, so basically, we have gone through all the calculations that I used to create this dashboard. So you realize that we're able to create and call all the items from our slices and our timelines here. Okay, and then I was able to create my sets. So sets is a way to order the items, okay, in your category or class so that you have it in a specific way. You can use cube set count to count the number of items in there. Okay, and with this is what we use sequence to do. Okay, and then I have my class, actually 5 classes here as well. Then I can also get a spill of all the things that I have. So this is the back end of the dashboard. Now, at this point, let's complete our dashboard, which I'm sure most of you are looking forward to. So I made a budget of time, and I'm going to attempt to complete this dashboard. It's pre-formatted. It takes a lot of time to get it at this stage. So before I go on, I'd like to see if there are any questions, and then we'll do that final end of the dashboard and proceed. Hi, Faraz.
Yeah, hi, Bernard. Yeah, there's no so far questions, but everybody's enjoying it. And we have so far like 102 people on YouTube right now.
Great. So let me get some water.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Okay, so thank you for checking on that.
Some nice comments, great efforts for putting it together, and good job, Bernard. They really like it, the way you are adding the combination of the filter function. They really enjoyed it, having that.
Fantastic. So you mentioned this.
There's a question, can you use the dynamic array with the filter function and the cube function? Could that be possible?
Yes. In fact, we're exploring that. That will probably be another video, how we can use the dynamic arrays. So one useful function in there is the make array. You can use that very well with cube functions. It's something that the team and I are working on, and hopefully once we have a complete list, I'm sure we can also demo that, but it's possible. We've tried and it works. Okay,
Cool. You can continue the session and I'll monitor the chat. And if any questions are there, we will let you know.
Great. Okay, so I have my dashboard laid out here, and usually I use these objects to bring in my values, right? So this has already been set, and I prefer this dark mode. Okay, so I saw Faraz also create another dark mode the last time. So welcome to the family. So you take the shape here, and you can start in the formula bar, go to equal to, then you go to your calculations, and we pick this. Okay, so normally when it comes in here, it's not formatted properly. Okay, so we calculated our inflows earlier. So I'll come and then format this with the white font. Okay, my preferred font when it comes to creating dashboard is Berlin Sun. Okay, I'll just increase this to about 18. Right, and then I'm going to do same for the outflows. So I'll come here with the equal sign and come to my calculations. It's here, it's black on black, so you're not able to see it. And then I'll do same for my net position as well. Okay, and I'll call this. Okay, I did this because I'm able to take this, go to home, use the format painter, okay, and then touch this so that it comes alive. So that is one neat way to do this. Usually I go back and then format these properly so that it will respond. Alt H9, Alt H. Okay, so when I go back to my dashboard, I should have it nicely formatted here. Okay, so we have completed the inflows and outflows portion for this part of the dashboard. Now let's bring in our budgets and actual. Okay, you know, we staged this earlier. So this is where we staged it. We got it here. So my goal is to bring this in here, my dashboard. So I'll take the first reference, which is a spelled array, and I'll bring it in here like that. I've already formatted this because I didn't want to eat into the time, but hopefully I'll make the final workbook available and you appreciate the conditional formatting behind each. Okay, so here I just reference this part and then I reference this one. Okay, and I can copy this down. Okay, so let me just take this from the source again. I'll take this from here. Okay, and then I'll just copy this down. And then I'm going to run an ABS function around this. So I'll run an ABS function around this calculation. Okay, then I'll copy this down. Okay, so this now brings all our budgets. Let's do same for our actual. So I'll come here. You know, this is already filtering based on what you have selected. Okay, so same method. I'm going to run an ABS function around this to take away the negative numbers. Okay. And then sometimes in some of the actual numbers, we don't have data. So in the event it returns an error. Okay, so if error, I want it to be blank. Okay, so I'll take this and then double click, and this goes in there nicely. Okay, so this is one neat way to visualize your actual and budget. Okay. Now, the advantage that I said few functions give you is this is always going to be ordered this way. Okay, so always, whether you filter or you slice, your income level, your income lines are always going to come on top, and your expenses are going to go in that order. We appreciate this when we bring in the slices. Okay. Now, let's bring in our waterfall chart. So I'm going to show you how I created this. So with the waterfall chart, I already have my labels here already. So just come Alt F1 for my default charts, and then I'll come and change, remove the screen here. Okay, so I will change charts, and then I'm going to use the waterfall chart. And I'll click OK. Okay, so this is the default. I'm going to delete the lines. So you try and make your charts as simple as possible. I'll delete this, and then double click on the connectors to take away the connector. Okay, then I can take away these labels, reduce the gap width a bit, so it's about 40, 50. Okay. Then I'll take the waterfall chart, cut this, then bring it to my dashboard area. So here I'm going to format it so that it fits into my dashboard theme. So I'll just align it here. See? Then change my background. So I'll come to format, shape fill. Here I can choose no fill. All this is selected. I can change the font. Okay. And also make this. Okay. So net is not an increase, it's a total. Okay. So one trick that I've learned is when you are trying to select this, it's kind of difficult. So you can use the tab key to go through. Then once you get your net selected, and set this as total. In this way, I have a different color. Right. So this is my inflows. These are my outflows. And I have my net position here. Now let's make it consistent with our theme. So our inflow is going to be green. Okay. And then our outflows is going to be red. And then our net position is going to be blue. Now, again, to format this, I found an easier way to do this is to add the legend. Okay. When you add a legend, you can just click on a particular legend, go to fill, and then change the color as you please. Okay, so this solid fill, I want this as green. This green is what I use. Okay, while I'm here, I can take the decrease part to come to this solid fill, and then choose red for this. And then I'll come to my total. Okay, and then choose blue for this one as well. So this is one neat way to bring in that visualization. I can take legend and then format it white to make it easier for users. Okay, so I can now take off my border lines. So I'll bring my format, shape outline, no outline to make it a bit neat on the eyes. Okay, so we are making progress. Now let's bring in our slices. Okay, so these slices help us ask questions, interact slides, and all that. So I'm going to arrange them so I can cut them all together and take them in there. Okay, so holding control, select all these three parts. Normally, when you cut or you delete a slicer, temporarily all your cube will disappear. But when you bring them back, well and alive. So the position of my online is going to be here. Then I have my type, my class over here. So shortly, I'm going to show you how you can format the slicer, make it agree with the theme that we are using. So by default, this is the theme that we have. Learn how to do this shortly. Okay, so for this timeline, what I'm going to do, let me move these buttons. This time now, I'll take out the header, take off scroll bar, take off the selection label to give me some space at the top. The zoom buttons are getting in the way. So I'll come back and format this, but let's work on the slices. So for the slices, what you can do is, like, your default slicer is here. Okay, so you have your default slicer here, right? But you can duplicate it. Okay, so you can duplicate the default slicer. Let's call this next to. And the whole slicer is the whole background here. So currently it's white. With every part of your slicer, you can go in there and format it as you please. So the fill is going to be the same fill as our background. Okay, our borders, we'll keep it at no border. Okay, and then our font is going to be white. So that is for the whole slicer. Okay. Then let's come to our header. So our header will come here, and the header is going to have a white font. Okay, and then our border line is going to be white. And then we'll just hit the bottom, and then there's no fill here. So this is fine. So we get a preview of what is going on here. Now, my selected item with data is these buttons. Okay, so when I select them, what do I want to see? I want to see this blue and white, similar to what is showing here. So I'll go to format, okay, and then I'll fill this with blue, no border line. Then font, I'm going to change this to white. And I'll click OK. So when I do this, and I come and then apply my slicer, it blends in nicely with my theme. So I can just align this. Apply same here. So this is that. That's how you format slicer. Let's see if we can do same for our timeline. So for our timeline, come in here again, we'll duplicate the default. Duplicate the default and call this my next timeline. Okay, so our whole timeline is, we're going to fill this with the color that we choose for our background. Our borders, we are not going to have any borders, and then our font is going to be white. Okay. And then I'll click OK. Okay. For our header, we do a similar formatting. So we take our fill as the background of our dashboard. Okay, we choose no border, then we'll make our font white. Then I'll click OK. Okay, I've taken off the selection label, the time level, and then the period labels. Okay, but I can decide to make it white, okay, just in case it's reactivated. So I'll click OK. Then I'll also come in here and make this white. Okay, then the selected time block, which is the button that shows what I have selected, I'm going to fill that, okay, with a deeper blue. And then I'll click OK. Let me work on the border too. So no border. Okay, then unselected time block, I think I will prefer that one as gray, as we have it. Okay, and then I'll probably leave the space to, okay, as gray. Okay, so let's see what we have. So when I come here, then I select this. Okay, I have this nice timeline, which I can insert in my dashboard. Choose to maintain the scroll bar. Let me just insert some rows above. Okay. At this point, I will want to zoom out so you can see all the elements at a go. Okay. Nicely position this. Okay. And then we are good to go. So this is my timeline, and you realize that the timeline usually, because it works through the cube to get the function or the value, I must say. Sometimes when you start looking for the first time, you get this getting pivot, getting data, display. Once the value has come in, you come back, it should be smooth at that point. So this is just to show you what is possible when it comes to analyzing data with few functions. I know there's a lot that we could have covered. At this point, I think I'll allow the rest of the time for any Q&A that may arise. Faraz, over to you.
Thank you, Bernard. These are lovely tricks, and here's some Q&A, which some of them has already been answered in the chat.
Okay.
There's one, what is the net income is the negative? Okay, there's a question, what is the net income is negative? Wouldn't you normally use red? You use blue or net income positive. What do you recommend if it is a net loss? So
Well,
I think
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I meant is, what if the net income is negative?
So if I understood, that was on the color of the net income, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a choice. I choose blue because usually blue is a neutral color when it comes to this red, green visualization for income statement. But if net is negative, I'm not too sure how you can format the shape color to respond to that. But of course, you can use red if you prefer. But I think blue is a better choice here for the neutral position. Of course, green comes in and then the red goes, and then you have your net position. But red also works if you have some negative positions as well.
Cool. There's another question from Nawaf. It's a really interesting one, which many of us have answered it. The question is, why build formulas on PQ Power Query and not using DAX on Power Pivot? Not complaining, it's just an honest question. What is the difference? So like, why we build formulas in Power Query, not much in DAX? So what would be your reply? Because there's a lot of reply on this one already in the chat.
I'm sure we can have a whole debate on this. I mean, when it comes to the data analytics process, I prefer to do all the ETL stuff, the extraction, the transformation, the formula work, and all those things in Power Query. Yeah. I think it improves your performance. Okay. I know Power Pivot has a date calendar table function icon in there that can generate all the dates for you. But my preference, I don't know about you, that I prefer to do all the transformation, the formula work in the ETL in Power Query.
Correct. That is my preference as well.
Yes. So
yeah. I just try to. So my reply was like, I would just do it and try to make my model as light as possible during the calculation, so it can eat less memory and it can be written faster.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Of course, Alan, by Power Query rules. Alan has a comment for you. You can check on the chat if you don't mind.
Okay, so I'm not checking the chats. Yay, okay.
As long as it's stated in a legend or somewhere, so readers don't understand. It's a standard across the company.
Okay. So I mean, it's a choice. I just feel Power Query makes things easier. It handles all the ETL, makes your model lighter, all that. So
cool. And Mehdi from Algeria, he has joined on the YouTube chat, and he said hi to you. And he's mentioned about the formatting, that maybe we can use the custom formatting on the label for the negative net.
Okay. So yes. But the earlier question was on the color of the series, if I got that right.
Yes.
But you can do, yes. Yes, you can do that. You can do that.
Cool. I think if we have any questions, we can end at the party over here, but we'll be still having some more fun on the Zoom chat. So
Sure.
anything else we have, Bernard, now, or we can just wrap up the session?
Okay, so this is one area that's I'm very passionate about. I know Chris Webb has done a lot of work on this. I've been following his articles on how to use Q functions to make the whole analytics process come alive. The thing is, it's not to say don't use pivot tables, but the whole session is to give you an idea that in situations where you are stuck, you need flexibility in taking your numbers for your Excel dashboard. It's good to know that the Q functions are there. Okay, so this is to give you a bit of both worlds. So usually, because I'm from a finance background, I prefer using the cube functions because of flexibility. But then again, for all that we've done, you can also use pivot tables to do some of it. Then you can also add cube functions to also achieve same. I'm sure Faraz and the rest of the MVP members also share interesting insights on using pivot tables as well. So I didn't come here to give a verdict, but to give you another angle on how you can create dashboards. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed the session. The workbook will be made available. I'll share the solution file with us so that you can also practice along. And you can also give us feedback as well. So that's from me, Faraz. Thank you for this opportunity.
Lovely, lovely. So I'm going to, once I get the workbook, I'm going to put it on the YouTube link in the video description, so you can feel free to get it download from there. And this is really lovely, Bernard. It was really great to have you. Means we have been, as I told you, that initially when I started my chat, the session, that I know you through like MVP, and I've been quite following your post on the WhatsApp and other places, and it's really lovely to have such a great people coming here and talking about some crazy ideas, I would say. And I call all my friends Avengers, because everybody has their own skill, own power, so I always call them Excel Avengers or Microsoft Avengers. So that's really lovely to have a wonderful Avenger over here who's coming and rescuing us. and and that's lovely, Bernard. So just before we end the session, just I'll be quickly mentioning about my data summit. If you haven't registered yet, make sure that you go and register. We have some more crazy stuff coming up also over there. Some most amazing tips and tricks also will be there. So make sure that you register it. But before we end the video, it's always I ask my speaker, any last words, any kind of a quote or anything you like to share, Bernard. Please share it, because we are going to end from YouTube live, but we'll be still back on the Zoom.
Fantastic. So for starters, I'd like to thank you for staying. It helps to know that there are people on the side taking the knowledge and also giving us feedback. So thank you for us for this opportunity. Fellow MVPs who are here, Alan and all, thank you for joining. And I also want to appreciate the members from Finest Skills Hub, Ghana, wonderful community, very large Rangers. So this is the African version of your Rangers, doing a lot of stuff in data analytics, financial modeling, app sheets. So this shirt is one of the programs that we are running for sponsored girls. So we did Excel and Python in the previous edition. This time around, we are showing the girls how to use Excel, Google Sheets to create low-code apps. Okay, so thank you, Finder Skills Hub, for your feedback. Really appreciate it. Now, one thing I want to encourage you to do is, we all didn't start knowing Excel this way. We started with a lot of errors. Okay, I shared this story of when I only knew VLOOKUP, and I did an academic terminal report for a school, and the administrator went to insert a column. So all my calculations went off for 800 students. And for me, that was a lesson. So there are always ways you can build on projects and you can get your experience from that. So keep practicing. Faraz, Alan, all the MVPs share their resources. I'm sure you can get a lot of insights from there. Thank you for coming along. Hope you can connect very soon.
Cool. Thank you. So my friends, I'll be seeing you soon in my next meetup and my next video. So stay tuned and make sure that you subscribe to Bernard channel as well. It's all the descriptions are there in the YouTube description. And seeing you soon. Till then, take care. Bye from YouTube.